everybody. Welcome to the show. Good to have you here. TWRA's weekly podcast called the Tennessee WildCast. Jason Harmon over here. Good morning. Good day, Jason.
Good day. Good day, mate.
Good day. I'm Doug Markham. We'll introduce our guest in just a minute. He's a special guest. He's a repeat guest. Anyway, before we get there, though, Jason, we're in the middle of everything, right?
It's deer season.
Getting cold.
Getting cold.
Duck season. It's a good thing for ducks, right?
Yep. Is it rabbit season?
Is it rabbit? Yes, it's rabbit season.
There you go.
It's,
or is it duck season?
It's both. Those two guys would have a bad time. He's going back to his cartoon days. All right. Let's just go ahead and say Chuck Yoest is here.
Yes.
Chuck is here. Chuck is one of our assistant chiefs of wildlife and forestry. And Chuck, thanks for coming back.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
A lot going on in your shop, and that's why we got Chuck in here today. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff deer. We're going to talk about that big deer again because we all got to see it recently. And we're going to talk about other big deer that Chuck's seeing. And we're going to talk about CWD and whatever subjects deer might come up. And then hopefully Chuck can give us a tip or two on shooting deer this time of year, finding them as we get later into the season and really starting to I guess we're past most of the, Chuck is the expert on that, past most of the mating time of year. Rutting time of year probably is a better biological word, Chuck, I guess.
Either way.
But we're getting past it and get some good tips from Chuck and you too, Jason.
I'm still seeing some bucks running out there.
No doubt. He doesn't all stop at one time, does it, Chuck?
No, it doesn't. My favorite time is November 15th through December 15th, so we've got a few days left in that window, but it's a good time.
It's a good time to go, and then go hunt their stomachs because it's going to be cold out there, and they're going to be looking for food.
That's right.
All over the place. Let's talk about that big deer first, though, okay? And when I say that big deer, there's been a lot of them lately. Chuck and I were talking before the show started about so many larger bucks being killed this year, and we're going to discuss. Chuck's going to tell us exactly why, right?
Yeah, but I'll talk about them.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that other buck first. The one that may be our world record buck here out of Tennessee, non-typical, 300 plus points. I mean, 300 plus inches in length. It looks like 300 points almost, 47 points. And this young man came to the Wildlife Commission meeting the other day, and he is a nice young guy, pretty quiet guy, and he let all these commissioners and everybody else take photographs with this rack. And our director up there, one of the shots top, and that's Dale. You recognize Dale. But he came to the meeting, brought this rack, and just let everybody in the world touch it and spend time with him talking about it and all that stuff. Recognized him for his accomplishment over in Sumner County, Tennessee. And this deer, we don't know if this rack's going to be a world record or not, but it's still going to be one of the elite deer racks from a free roaming deer ever taken in America. So it was pretty cool seeing it.
Give or take a few inches, it could be a world record or not.
It could be. And, one of the things that we said about it, Chuck, is this was not a massive body deer. It's just a unique rack.
Right, yeah, that's true. I think one of my favorite parts of that presentation or that story was shared by Dale Grandstaff, and that was the fact that it's not that unusual for us to see those antler characteristics in that area of Tennessee. So that was pretty cool. Yeah,
Dale did a great job. Dale's been on here a time or two with us now, and he came in and talked about the rack a lot and how it was measured and his friend that measured him with him. But the presentation he gave, Dale is so good at talking about that kind of stuff, was pretty fascinating. And when he said the characteristics, you mean the non-typical style and shape of that and the points, and is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, that non-typical rack, but also the palmation that deer expressed.
Okay, we'll know sometime in January they're going to get together and measure again, and then 2 or 3 years from now it goes to be looked at again with Boone and Crockett. But we'll know more about what the deer, how it measures once it dries out. And is that true of all bucks when you're measuring them? Do you have to wait so many days before you can measure the rack and do the official Boone and Crockett or the Tennessee Register or whatever?
Yeah, that's correct. People commonly refer to a preliminary score as a green score, meaning that it's not dried out. But, yeah, you have to go through that standard amount of time just so if there is any reduction in size that it's accomplished before the final measurement.
Okay, Chuck. What kind of year we have? And we're talking buck stuff all the time and big bucks. People don't just go hunting for bucks. They love to shoot does and fill their freezers full of venison. I know Jason likes to go out and get some deer meat, and it's not always about hunting the antlers, but there are a lot of folks who do like to hunt the antlers, and I know y'all try to manage to please everyone. So how is it going so far this year, and what did you mean by some big bucks being taken?
Well, overall, the average seems to be, or I'm sorry, the harvest seems to be average. So we're having a typical year. That's really no surprise. We are excited about what we're seeing in antler deer because there's just been a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement about a lot of large antler deer that are being harvested. So there's a lot of excitement about the antler deer that are being taken. Overall, the harvest looks normal. We're just now getting to the time of year where the antlerless harvest spikes. So I anticipate, unless there's some strange weather events over the next few weeks, that we'll really see an increase in that antlerless harvest.
Okay, I have to ask you, why does it spike now?
Well, two reasons. One is deer behavior, but second is that hunters tend to hold back on antlerless harvest until towards the end of the season.
I see that. They don't want to get that last buck before it's all over, I
Right.
suppose, right? Okay, and of course they're not running like they were after the does. I don't know if that's what you mean by deer behavior or not, but it's just a whole different dynamic the second part of the season.
Right.
Do you like the second part of the season as a hunter? Do you like hunting? You said your favorite is November to December, but what about the rest of the days until we get all the way to the youth hunt in January?
Well, I love to hunt, so any time of the year when I can hunt, it's great. But the most exciting time is during that rut for me. But just like I described earlier, is during the rut I'm focused more on antler deer. But once that slows down, I'm gonna harvest a couple of antlerless deer for meat to get me throughout the year until next deer season. And I think that's what a lot of folks do.
Okay, all right. Now you said there were some big bucks being taken. Dale Grandstaff sent me a text the other day. We were talking about Stephen Tucker, and that's the young man that took we didn't mention that again, that took the non-typical buck. But he wrote me as we were discussing that and said another buck. I don't remember what county, I'm sorry, but it was a 191.
Wow.
And which I guess is a typical. But this is, and then you talked about a drop tine that you saw somewhere. Where was that deer from, and what did it look like?
Well, I just saw a picture, so I don't know all the details, but there was a really nice double drop tine buck harvested in Hardin County, and it was just a bruiser. I believe it had 14 some odd points, and it didn't, it just had really heavy, long drop tines that matched, and it was just impressive. And I can't wait to see it in person.
Right.
I hope I get that chance.
All right, you said you're not sure why all this is going on. Sure, it's not because you're up there now, and Joe Bendick's up there now,
No.
and Mark Gillen's up there now.
No, I think it's just, we've got regulations in place that are, helping with the age structure of the antler deer that are harvested, and then the hunter behavior or preference, however you want to describe it, is that people are, letting more and more of those yearling bucks walk, and we're beginning to see in a very big way the positive results of that.
Good deal. This as we get into the years ahead, and I know there's constant discussion in the wildlife division. You guys are always talking about what's the best way to manage deer, and pretty much doesn't stop. And you have a lot of different pressures up there about managing deer. Do you see anything, though, coming down the pike right now that's going to be vastly different? And I want to note, too, that Chuck he's the assistant chief. He has to talk about a lot of different things. James Kelly is over the deer program. We're going to get James on in a few weeks. But have y'all talked about anything that you see drastically in the next couple of years changing, or you like the way it is right now?
Well, there's two big things that I'm thinking a lot about recently, and I know James is as well, is the threat of chronic wasting disease. Mm-hmm. That could completely transform in an unfortunate way how we manage deer in our state.
Right.
So that threat is a huge concern for us. We try to do all that we can to prevent that disease from being in Tennessee, assuming that it's not, and then not only trying to prevent it, but if it does occur here or eventually does, how do we contain it so that we minimize the impacts of it? That's number one. That's the biggest issue.
And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But
yeah, and probably the second biggest issue currently is is our check-in procedures, our tagging procedures for big game animals in general. You know, we're doing a critical review of that now to determine if there's ways to enhance it. So that's a really big subject that we're focused on.
Okay, all right. And speaking of the way we're tagging deer and all that, a lot of hunters love to come onto the site, onto our website, and see what the results of harvest. Not able to do that right now. What's going on, and will it come back?
Well, it's evolving. You know, we used to have the hunter's toolbox. It was referenced by a lot of sportsmen on our website,
Mm-hmm.
and that's still in existence, but it's pretty limited currently. But I'm excited about the new Cadillac system that we have coming. We've got a new IT vendor that's responsible for that, and they're going to take that light years beyond where it has been. So very soon, hunters will be to go into the new hunter's toolbox and do much more than they did in the past.
That'll be neat. So, and that's through the website, tnwildlife.org, and which is going to look different in the next 6 or 8 or months or also. So a lot of things changing there. The harvest, though, you're saying statewide, when you say it's about regular, it seems like in recent years, Tennessee's harvested around 165, 170,000 deer. Is that about what you're thinking this year?
Well, I anticipate a normal reported harvest. You know, that's something that James is the deer program leader is teaching me, and something that we all need to think more about is the fact that the numbers that we reference are the reported harvest. Okay, so the real harvest is going to vary from that. It's going to be a higher number. So one other important thing that we're focused on is trying to determine what that difference is annually, because that'll tell us a lot about what's actually happening with the deer population.
Okay,
so
and when you say the actual reported harvest?
Well, you got reported harvest, which is a count of all the deer that have been checked in, deer, turkey, bear, and unfortunately we don't have 100% compliance.
Sure.
Which means that the actual harvest is higher than that. So it's going to be really important that we all realize that and begin to think that way, and then to make up for or account for that by determining what's the difference between reported and actual, so that we can do a better job of managing our deer population.
Once upon a time, Chuck, before you probably even started working for the agency, but certainly before you were in the Nashville office, Chuck was a wildlife officer before he came into here. There was modeling that went on, and I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, of creating models. When the agency was going through a process of building the deer population, it had models that it worked off of, and it seemed like to me it included maybe not unreported harvest, maybe it did, but it reported things like we knew that some animals were probably run over, hit by cars. Is that what you're looking at in the future, just a different style of modeling?
Well, maybe. What we need is we need more data to manage on. Okay, and the reported harvest is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle that we need to put together to comprehensively or strategically manage our deer population.
Is the information that you still gather the ones where we almost beg hunters sometimes to bring their deer to us, the opening of muzzleloader season, the opening of the gun season, a lot of the hunts that occur on our wildlife management areas, is that data as critical as ever to what we get, measuring the length and looking at the teeth and sometimes weighing the deer? We don't do that out in the county so much anymore, but I think we still do on some of our WMAs.
Yeah, it's crucial. So not only do we need reported harvest, but we also need an index of the living population. So how many live deer are out there, and then the biological data that you're referring to, age data, that sort of thing that we get through processors and check stations are worth there. That's crucial as well. But another component that we've got to focus on more in the future also is the hunter dimensions, or the human dimensions, or how hunters think, what they prefer, that sort of thing. So all of those data that are out there and available to us, we got to be more conscious about getting all that and then analyzing it appropriately, and then building that into how we achieve our goals and objectives for deer management and bear and elk, et cetera.
Okay. All right. And I'm not going to take you off into a bunch of the other stuff much, but just a brief question on them. Is our bear population, does your division thinking it's as good as ever? Are elk doing fine? Are turkey doing okay? Those are the other three big game that come to mind.
Well, you may have to walk me through those one by one because I'm bound to forget one. I always seem to, but deer population is stable and doing great. The elk population is stable. We estimate that population around 400 animals currently.
Okay.
The bear population continues to grow. The distribution continues to grow. So we've seen an increased distribution west of the Cumberland Plateau, which, you know as well as I do, that traditionally we think of bears being on the plateau east. Well, that's not necessarily the case anymore. So those populations are continuing to increase. Turkeys depends on the area of the state. It seems that turkeys have stabilized for the most part across the state. Maybe a small decrease in some areas. That's a question for us, and that's why you've heard so much about the Middle Tennessee study that they're doing. We're just going to watch that closely, and that biological study that we're doing down there should help us with that.
Okay. And while we're there, Dan Gibbs has been in here with Jason, and also we've had several folks talking about turkey. And I want to remind you, every show that we've done so far is out on the various sites that we put them, and you can go watch Dan talk about bears in great length, and also some of the discussions on turkey, especially the study that's going on.
Richard gave an in-depth.
Richard Kirk.
Yeah.
So go look for those names. They're all out there for you, and go into more detail than what Chuck can go into right now. Chuck, the thing I do want to go into detail with you about today, though, is chronic wasting disease, and you talked about it a minute ago as being the number one concern looking forward. Other states are already having to deal with the reality of it and have been for several years, but we've had Missouri, I think, added not too long ago. Virginia's got chronic wasting disease in it now. Arkansas reported it last year. We don't have it so far as you know, but are we checking for it? And is this going to be continuing concern for maybe as far as we can see out in the future?
Yeah, I think it will be a continuing concern. What we've done this year is we have finalized a chronic wasting disease response plan, so we're prepared if it were to occur here. In order to help sample for it, we've increased our sampling efforts.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
what does it mean?
Thank you for that. And this is something that couldn't be accomplished without hunters being cooperative and helping us, and so we're grateful for that. But so several hunters have probably noticed that we have staff members positioned at processors and check-in stations on the major hunting weekends, and if we get the opportunity, we're going to take a lymph node sample from each deer and then submit that for disease testing. And that's for chronic wasting disease. And, for quite some time we were doing a modest amount of sampling, but now we've increased that greatly. This year I expect that we'll near 2,000 samples.
Golly, that's a lot of deer.
Yeah,
a lot of samples.
It is a lot, but of course it's relative. The states that have chronic wasting disease are up around 18,000 now. For example, Missouri. So
testing.
Testing.
Yeah. Wow.
Testing.
Okay.
So it's relative, depending on whether or not it occurs in the state. But that is a great improvement, especially when you're probably have to do an increasing effort over time. But it's a really, really, really big concern and something we've got to take seriously.
Okay. We had a deer brought in recently from Missouri that it's been sent off for testing. I don't know what the result is, but the thing is it came into our check-in station, and it came in full-bodied, and that's not the way it's supposed to happen these days, and there's a reason for it. First of all, what is chronic wasting disease in a nutshell, and what are the rules surrounding it pertaining to hunters who go out of our state and bring deer back?
Yeah, so this is a really, really big subject, chronic wasting disease, and I'm not an animal disease expert.
Understand.
So forgive me if I simplify this or oversimplify it, but basically what you have is a rogue protein that occurs in an animal, in this case deer and elk, and that protein results in holes in the brain, which is going to obviously kill an animal, and this disease certainly does that. And the symptoms is that the animal will simply waste away. So if you could imagine a deer or elk that looks like they're starving, okay, and then they would show all the other symptoms that would go along with that. So that's it in a nutshell. is how
And contagious.
It is definitely contagious. Thank you for pointing that out. And either animal to animal contact, it can be transferred, but it can also be transferred environmentally. So a deer could, if there were feces, urine on the ground or in the soil, then the potential exists for other deer to contact that, and then the disease transfer from animal or from the environment to the animal. So that potential exists. So you got a very bad disease that is passed either animal to animal or through the environment, and that's a scary thing, especially considering that it kills every animal that contacts it.
Okay, when you say animal, deer. We're not
Deer.
talking about pigs or horses or cows or any of that stuff, right?
Right. This disease specifically is affecting members of the deer family.
The deer family.
Now, there are variations of it that affect cattle and sheep and even humans, but in this case, that's not the case. It's not known to transfer to humans.
Okay, so TWRA's effort, Tennessee's effort, is to keep any states that have had an impact or they've reported in their states from bringing deer over. What are the rules, and why did this person that came over from Missouri had his deer confiscated from him, taken away from him, and didn't make him very happy, but it was done for the safety of our deer herd.
Right. So these rogue proteins can manifest themselves in the central nervous system of an animal. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's why we take a lymph node sample, because that's a part of an animal's central nervous system, just like it is for us. But because those proteins exist there, the goal is through this regulation that you're referring to, is to, when hunters bring their animals from CWD positive areas into Tennessee, that they leave all that material behind.
Okay.
It's not brought into the state. So positive states like Arkansas, Missouri, Virginia, if you're going to bring your animals in from those states, then they've got to be deboned. The skull plates have to be clean, antlers, clean teeth, that sort of thing. So we're trying to keep all that central nervous material out of our state, because that could be how it is introduced into Tennessee.
Find your processor over there in this case before you bring them back.
Yeah.
Exactly. Have it processed there, and certainly you need to be familiar with where this applies to.
Exactly. There is the responsibility, as always, of knowing the law. And if you go to somebody else's state, you need to know their law and our law too. Correct.
Right.
And somebody wrote on our Facebook the other day and said something about Alabama being a state. Somebody brought a big deer from Alabama, but Alabama's not among the states, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So you got to know what states. Are they listed in our guide? Do you go to the website? Do you go to the state's websites that you're going to and look?
Yeah, there's it's on our website, and we keep an updated list there.
Okay.
We reference it in the hunting guide, but the list changes annually.
Right,
So we got to be more flexible than that. So we do that communications through our website.
Okay, I want to bring up Virginia too, because Virginia's a state that's had it that next year, starting in the spring sometime, goes on this list, right? Even now it is if you're in certain counties up in Virginia. Am I wrong on that, Chuck?
That's right.
Okay, but next year, even Virginia, if you're bringing a deer from Virginia down to Tennessee, it's got to do everything you just said.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And as far as the chronic wasting disease in other states, I know you're talking to your counterparts. Are they getting a grip on it? Or is it spreading in their states? Do you know? Especially speaking of Missouri or Arkansas, that's so close. Are they starting to figure it out? And are we watching them all the time to see what they're doing that might work for us if we have the day?
Absolutely. We're looking at successes and failures in other states to determine how we respond. The only true success, I'll call it, has been in New York, where they caught it very, very early, and to their knowledge, it's not present in any living animals there, but they're having to do constant sampling to be sure. But once a state has chronic wasting disease, it never goes back to CWD free. So once you get it, that's off the table. So even in New York, it's not considered chronic wasting disease free, but it's been quite some time since they found it in an animal. So I would call that a success as far as containing the disease. But your Arkansas example, they're doing the best they can down there, but in the areas where they're finding it, the prevalence is as much as 24%, I believe.
Golly, it's a lot of deer.
Yeah, that's a high percentage of diseased animals. So they're fighting an uphill battle there, and if you look at those two examples, that's why it's so important to catch it early. because depending on how many animals are diseased is going to determine how successful you are in containing it. So you got to catch it early so there's fewer animals so you can limit the population there so that it doesn't just continue to grow.
All right, and
I have a question on if this gets in Tennessee, what's the impact going to be on the success that we're having with our deer being, killing these monster bucks now and seeing the growth in these bucks and the number of deer? What's the impact going to be on that? Will it change that much at all?
Well, what you'll see is a change in population numbers eventually. Some of that on purpose and some of it not. So this is a big subject as well. But what the response, if we find it, is that we're gonna through hunting and whatever means is needed is the population is going to need to be reduced in that area. Okay, so you're going to have a kind of a man initiated reduction in the population. Mm-hmm. But even without that, over time, the population will eventually decrease because animals are dying at a quicker rate. So in areas where it's really prevalent out in the West, they're seeing population declines because of it. Now, as far as age structure, I think that's what you were emphasizing there, whether it's males or females, is that once this disease is prevalent in a population, animals will basically survive long enough to reproduce. Okay, and what that means is that they could expire or die at 2.5 years old, where normally their lifespan may be longer than that. So what begins to happen is overall your population is younger. Okay, so you don't see as many of these older age class deer that we're fortunate to be experiencing now. So it turns the age structure upside down.
Okay,
and your management upside down.
Yeah, that's not good.
All right, and we don't want to be all doomsdaysy. We just want to be cautious.
Right.
But Chuck, there's got to be some feeling that it's inevitable one day. I hope I'm wrong on that, but is there that feeling there, or is it I know we're gonna fight it to the bitter end, but what are our chances 25 years from now not having chronic wasting disease?
I really don't know the answer to that, but I'll agree with you that we've got to be proactive and prevent it the best we can.
I think you have been wonderful, and there is a plan, right? That you've worked on the plan. Yeah. I mean, it's a long, lengthy plan that would take a while to read and took you a long time to work on.
Well, I had a lot of help, but yeah, it was a bit of a monumental task. But it's worthwhile, and that's the whole thing about this. Yeah, it would be easy to get discouraged and think that, well, this is going to happen. There's no sense in getting all excited about it. But we'd be kidding ourselves if we said that we shouldn't do all that we can do to protect this most important resource.
It is. It's financially important. People love deer hunting, and it's important to your lifestyle. And there's no telling how many millions upon millions of dollars that TWRA has spent, the sportsmen's dollars, restoring white-tailed deer.
Right.
That started all the way back in the 1930s in some form or another, and really what got rolling in the 60s and 70s. And we have the deer that we have today thanks to the dollars of sportsmen, a lot of hard work, and millions of dollars. And all that could be wiped out if we're not careful.
Yeah, and some of this is personal for me, and it's my passion for deer hunting and for deer management. And so it's a really big deal. You won't see me back away from this fight.
Okay.
And to see what New York's done, I mean, we'd be foolish not to
try to do the same
be
thing.
Proactive and stop it as best we can.
Right.
Are your friends over in Arkansas going crazy?
They're busy. They're busy. So this is just we don't. Hopefully, we don't have to experience what they're going through here.
All right, Chuck, and you hear the music, so we're almost out. But this is nothing to do with deer. But you were on a few weeks on our Facebook talking about fires on wildlife management areas and so forth. Actually, that was Mark. What's the latest on the fires? Are we good now with all the rain across state on our WMAs?
Well, the rain has certainly helped. I wouldn't say that we're totally out of it, but we're in a better place.
All right, Chuck, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, have a good Christmas.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, watch this show at TWRA TV, tnwildlife.org. We're on YouTube. We're on iTunes. You can listen, watch just about anywhere you want to find us. So
watch all the old programs. Some great stuff out there. We'll see you next week on Tennessee WildCast.
See y'all.